there's parts of it undeniably that suck. I tore my calf playing tennis. That's never happened to me before.
Yeah.
But it's an explosive injury.
Yeah.
So like, I think it's really,
Well, your muscle didn't know like how strong you actually were.
it was just like, don't move that fast. Oh my God.
Yeah.
No, but it really was. It was like, please don't move that fast.
Okay, so let's
So yeah.
record the intro now. Just
So what did Milkless? Because I think we start with the name.
two dads. We love our kids, but then we also need them to know that we're like pretty cool and it's not like a wimpy podcast. So, hey,
Hey.
Milkless.
Hey, welcome. Hey.
Hey, Milkless. Call the audience, Milkless. What's up, Milkless? Max coming at you.
What if that's it? That's our first take. On this episode of the podcast, we're going to be talking about turning 40. Holy shit. I just did it. Max is about to. In fact, I think we're going to release this thing on his birthday. I know what you're thinking, guys, but don't worry. We can still remain sex symbols even though we are mostly officially dead. P.S. We do actually get into talking about mortality a little bit, especially toward the end of the episode. Just giving you a heads up in case that's the kind of thing that makes you want to run for the hills. But hey, stick around. We do it in a friendly way. Here we go.
All right, Matt, today we're talking about getting older. You just turned 40. I'm turning 40. So, really just like, what is it like to be an old fart? And tell me, because I'm still in my 30s, baby.
Yeah, you're a young man. We'll sit back and listen to the wisdom of the ages.
So, how do you want to get into this?
40 people talk about 40 being a big birthday. And it certainly comes at an interesting point in your life when you have young kids. But I think one of the biggest things people talk about at 40 is that it's like middle age. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering if coming up on 40, how you'd been thinking about that.
I think a little bit. It's one of those things where like I've always been super chill with my age. I never really care. I still don't really care. But also just like kind of hoodwinked me on this. I didn't know we were going to be talking about like death the whole time.
Well, it's just one of my, it's just one topic among many.
Okay. But like, like sometimes like
you're not 40 yet, but when you get there, you just find yourself.
Well, basically I was like, you can't really hide from 40. Like 30 is still young. When you turn 40, it's like, the only person you're young to is like a fucking 80-year-old. Like, oh, you're still young. It's like, but like middle age, I've thought about it a little bit every once in a while. Like, yeah, half my life's over. That's kind of interesting. But then I try to think back to like, how long have I been alive? I've been alive a long time.
When I think to like my memories from when I was young, I'm like, that's so fucking long ago. I got that again. That still feels like a lot.
There was a combination of a ton of studies, self-perceptions of aging, systematic review of longitudinal studies. They looked at like 14 or 15 studies, and they all consolidated to basically show that a more positive self-perception of aging is associated with healthier outcomes. You live longer, less obesity, better performance of activities of daily life. So your life is actually better, less depression, better cognitive function. Mm-hmm. So just to kind of round us out as we're diving in here is like...
This is your new catchphrase. You got a catchphrase.
Yeah, it's important. You don't want to like be afraid of moving forward through life.
Yeah.
Because it'll actually backfire on you.
Yeah.
You try to hang on too much to the past. And also just like
a
lot of money shit happens in your 40s. Like Ray Kroc did McDonald's in his 50s. Julia Child was 49 with her first cookbook. Like it's just the beginning, baby. We're just in the thick of it with young kids right now. I think that's why people freak the fuck out at 40. You're assed out, not getting sleep. Your kids are like punching you in the balls, literally and figuratively. And on top of it, this number hits you where you're like, yo, you're probably like halfway dead. So like one foot is in the grave.
Yeah, it's a lot of once, isn't it?
One foot is in the grave and like you're not sexy anymore. So just like sleep with that, motherfucker.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not nice. But then the kids start to get older. Your life starts to get a little easier. Mm-hmm. And you turn into Vera Wang and then you design your first dress at age 40.
Yeah.
Or you're Sam Walton. You found Walmart at age 44. Not that you have to start a business to be fulfilled. But I'm just saying, a lot of people do a lot of cool shit as they get older.
Yeah. So one of the things you talked about is like the 40s is a time when a lot hits you. There's actually a lot of data out there that happiness in your lifespan is U-shaped. and that your 40s and 50s they're hard on people, and then your 60s and 70s are better. There's also studies that contradict this, but there seems to be a lot of data that your 40s are hard. And I think you're right. It's less about the number than what all is going on. Your early 40s are described as very high stress time. I think that goes with a lot of kick-ass stuff. It's high stress because you got a lot of important things you're doing, and that feels good. You got young kids. Most people are like in a pretty key time in their professional life. Your parents are starting to get older. You're not, like you said, you're not as sexy anymore.
Yeah.
God, one of the big ones is money. People worry a lot about money at this age because little kids are so expensive and such a tax on your time. And then for right now, it's just like with the inflation that just rolled through, that kind of like 2x all that. So I do think that's like a worry a lot of people feel at this age. And that's when you really feel in your bones, man. I get that sometimes. But you don't quite want to work as much as you did. It is a time where like you kind of want to ease off, but also really feel like you can't. Because the thing is, you also have this other job if you're carrying your weight in the house that fills up most of the hours that your work job doesn't fill up.
But that's why, like, I really do think it's just, and I think I've always been this way. You got to just figure out what the fucking point of it all is. Like, why are you doing this? Anything. I think so much of what we do in life is like about this should thing. I should do this. I should do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of times the things that we keep thinking about are the things maybe we need to do. Like maybe there's something that you've always wanted to do. Like, oh, I've always wanted to quit my job and buy a tiny house. Well, like, have you ever looked at the finances of it? Like, can you get it done?
Yeah.
Can you do it?
Yeah.
What's stopping you? You know what I mean?
Almost everyone has some version of that, don't they?
Yeah.
And it's always hard to tell how much of it is fantasy and how much of it is like, no, we should really just do this.
Yeah.
It is funny that for the first half of your life, there's a lot of like, I'm preparing for life.
Yeah.
And now it's like, well, here we are. This is it. Get right in there. It's actually been happening the whole time. There is some like nice encouragement to like use your time well.
Yeah. And like, I don't want to like scare people or anything, but like something that I sometimes also think about is just like, you just don't want to have regrets. I see stuff on Reddit sometimes where people are like, what do you wish you knew when you were 40? Or like, and it's like a 70-year-old Redditor, but those are always super insightful. And it's usually more things with their family.
It's always more time with people you love. Yeah.
And or true to themselves.
That to me, because it was interesting reading this U-shaped stuff, because I actually think my 40s are going to be better than my 30s. I'm kind of like, I'm bullish on my 40s.
Yeah.
My wife said this thing. It was a quote from somewhere. She said, you spend the first half of your life trying to be what other people want you to be. And you spend the second half of your life trying to forget all that shit and be who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I can already feel that happening. I feel like I'm more and more myself and more comfortable being like a little strange in the ways I am and having the opinions I have. And that is real fun because I just feel more honest.
Yeah.
Generally.
Yeah.
And I feel less like I'm trying to spin who I am. That's maybe what you get in return for some of these things that are kind of hard.
Yeah, 100%. And then also that's where you kind of get into something that you had mentioned earlier today to me about like the dads who get into like birding and knowing what birds are birds.
Yeah.
And then they get kind of poked fun at, but it's like, those dads don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
They're in their 40s, they're in their 50s. They know what they like. And maybe their mortality helps push them there. It's like, once you get over the hill, as they say, you're like, oh, like I better fucking just do whatever the fuck I want. I want to learn about Cardinals and Blue Jays and, finches.
I've started doing more of that kind of stuff. Like I know what the plants are in our yard. It's so stereotypical. It's easy to make fun of. But another way to look at it is like, I'm trying to understand the world around me and to like somehow connect to the fact that I'm an animal and these are animals. And all that's going to make it easier for me to think about dying someday.
Yeah.
And like, maybe there's some really healthy about it. Or like tinkering around the house or learning woodwork or whatever. It's easy to make fun of, but it's also like, well, I still have this body that I feel like is strong, but I'm not using it to try to go out and find some broad. And I'm not really like playing basketball as much.
Yeah.
So let me lift something heavy and use it to like make the place where my family lives better.
Yeah.
I just don't think we should poke fun at those things. I think they're fucking great.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's like what older people tend to do. They kind of,
Isn't it? Yeah. It's funny when you feel it happening to you.
they find the things that they like and they do those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also just like we don't really value elders.
Yeah.
Like they don't. That's not something that we care about. Like I mentioned on a previous episode, where it's like, get off the fucking road, you geezer.
Yeah.
It also goes back to not having the village, really.
Yeah, that's right. The elders were a feature of the village, weren't they?
Yeah, and I think that's why maybe you get a negative perception of aging because it's like, oh, I don't want to be like that person that I just told to like get off the fucking road.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And also, like, we don't talk about like the progression of life like this in American culture, at least.
Yeah.
A lot of people just ignore it.
Well, death is terrifying. Nobody really, like, most people really don't want to talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is why, like, this episode, I guarantee you the completion rate is going to be
You think it's going to be tragic?
possibly. But that study about like positive self-perception of aging associated with like better outcomes. So what do you think that even means?
I guess part of it is you got to find a way to like that you're getting older, in spite of some of the parts of it that are less fun.
Yeah, like I guess it's the opposite of that person who's like in denial or like, oh, happy birthday. Like, oh, fuck that. I can't even believe I'm this fucking old.
Yeah.
But what about a neutral one? If someone's like, I don't care, it's just a number. But that's not positive. So what would a positive self-perception of aging? Like, I like how I'm aging.
I do think about the things I'm getting out of it. As somebody, this was a really nice thing somebody said to me. I said something and they said, that's very wise. And I was like, oh, wise is something that I could fucking go for when I get a little gray in this beard.
I just need a couple like a blazer with some elbow patches.
But no, like I'd want wisdom. I also I got pretty good stories.
Yeah.
I get more of them all the time. When I have a meeting with somebody now, I don't assume that somehow they know more than I do. There are things about getting older that I really like, and those are the kind of things that I'm trying to lean toward.
You know what you're hitting on and what you're making me think about is like, it's about growth.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you growing? Are you learning?
Yeah.
Because then if you can start seeing like, okay, every year around the sun is like my kids get older, which is not something you fear. You're excited about their progress. I could see that as a positive self-perception of aging. You're getting wiser, feeling that like your cup is getting fuller as you get older.
Yeah.
As opposed to fearing what's the ultimate end game here. You know, it's like,
yeah,
no, it's about every day and improving.
Yeah. Because I do think like there's parts of it undeniably that suck. I tore my calf playing tennis. It's never happened to me before.
Yeah.
It's an explosive injury.
Yeah.
So like, I think it's really, but
well, your muscle didn't know like how strong you actually were.
It was just like, don't move that fast. Oh my God.
Yeah.
No, but it really was. It was like, please don't move that fast.
Yeah.
So there's parts of it that are a drag, and I don't think it does any good to like pretend they're not happening. But I think there's a lot to focus on that's pretty great. It's funny when you think of the midlife crisis, like the guy that like buys a sports car and has the affair with the younger whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
The stereotype of that is about a person who is refusing to progress.
Right.
Who doesn't want to grow up.
Right.
And who just keeps acting like a fucking chucklehead kid at an age where it's like, no, kind of what you should be doing now is learning the various calls of the birds in your yard. Or just like doing something a little more grown up, Well,
it goes back to what you said kind of at the beginning, that a lot of people in their 40s and beyond start to really know who they are and maybe value that more than what they should be doing or perception of others.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of metamorphosis maybe coincides with positive self-perception of aging because you're the 2.0 version of yourself. And then every day is exciting. Yeah, I think it's just knowing that like we got to get behind this thing.
Yeah.
The train's going.
It's going. Yeah, well, here we go. Are there things, well, let me ask you, are there things that you're excited about being 40?
Yeah, like I honestly just think of it almost just like I'm on this long road of life. And the number is just like a little bit of a timepiece.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I am crossing like the halfway mark. It's like, okay, well, I'm not 40. I'm not 40 yet.
Gee. One foot in the grave.
Yeah. But it just gives me even more of a reason to really focus on the now and try to slow time down and do things like with my kids that maybe are slower. Like my whole life I've been trying to move fast.
Mm-hmm.
Get things done fast,
mm-hmm.
do things fast. Like I'm very impatient. And what ends up happening is I complete a lot of things. I get a lot of things done, but time moves fast too.
Yeah.
Because I don't allow any sort of boredom or lull.
Another way that I've heard it described is like the young years of your life are kind of your heroic phase where you're going to go like light the world on fire and change everything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've felt this, but I mean, I do know that you felt this because we've talked about it. It's like you get into parenting and you realize what your limitations are and how often you fail. And you go out there and you try to do things in the world and you realize how hard it is to build a business or how a friendship can get really strained by working with somebody. And you just feel like, oh man, the world's pretty complicated and challenging.
Mm-hmm.
The experience of that is not super fun in the moment. And as I think why people describe some of that U-shaped happiness is you just get out there and you realize like, ah, shit, it's pretty like hard.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that like what I'm excited about in my 40s is I feel like I'm starting to feel the benefits of that, to feel like a little more like sturdy or something.
Yeah.
It's like exiting the heroic phase where you're just like anything is possible and having a little more humble approach to like things are hard, but I do feel like I'm pretty capable.
I think maybe there's also a metamorphosis that happens for probably everyone as they get older. Like you need to let go of certain things like lighting the world on fire.
It's funny, that one I can't quite all the way let go of. And I don't want to totally let go of my heroic 18-year-old self. I'm not sure I ever do.
Yeah.
I think there's a little part of that guy that's got to live on.
But then again, people don't really change.
But I think hopefully you do. Your circumstance, your situation changes so much. Like God help you if you don't change.
Yeah, true. But I mean like core things like the fact that like I'm always doing something new.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't really see myself just being like, yeah, like for the next 40 years, it's going to be all birds.
Yeah. There's stuff that's in there pretty good. Yeah. But there's other profound ways that I feel like we change.
Yeah.
We better, or we're going to be freaked the fuck out when we're old.
Yeah. But also like you have a child under 2 years old. Like that is like to use a quote from you, hyper need.
Yeah.
My life is getting easier by the month.
Yeah, that's
like,
it. Yeah.
I'm done wiping ass as of like a couple weeks ago. I will possibly never wipe another human's butthole for as long as I live, hopefully.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Like our two older kids can like go ski by themselves. Then we just say, oh, we'll see you in an hour.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see glints of,
yeah,
okay, it's worth it.
Uh-huh.
Everything's getting easier. I'm starting to even just see like there's going to be more time for these time consuming interests that, you know, maybe I start designing women's fashion and pull a Vera Wang.
That's always what I've seen for you.
I loved Project Runway though. Like one of the best TV shows.
I would watch that with my wife sometimes. Yeah, that was fun.
Until Tim Gunn and Michael Kors left, it was like,
Tim Gunn was really the heart of that show, wasn't he?
Yeah, but also Michael Kors, he's such an a-hole. He's such a great
a-hole.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is a good reminder that when your kids are really, really young, that's just a unique time. And like our youngest still doesn't sleep through the night. That's a whole thing. But I do feel like it's been hard, but I just don't feel like I'd trade any of it.
No, yeah.
I'm trying to learn to not mind that it's a little hard. Your 20s, you're like, it's fucking easy. And then you just kind of expect it to be easy. And then it gets hard and you're like, oh boy. But then at some point you're like, well, I guess this is how it is, but I'm up to it. And I do feel like I'm doing important things. I feel like I'm doing important work out there. Nobody else is raising these kids as much as me and wife. I'm needed.
But also like, you can't just be all self-sacrifice. And when you have young kids, there is just a lot of that. You're just in the trenches.
Yeah.
But it starts to pay back in like, the ROI is high. And it's not that you don't love young kids, but just the amount of work is just really, really, really high.
Yeah.
And then as they start getting older, possibilities start to open up, like the clouds open up and it's like, what are you going to do? Like literally anything. This is where I think it's so important. The positive self-perceptions of aging is like, if you don't get into like collecting rare insects or something, we all know the people who bury themselves in work and they retire and it's like, I don't even know how to flex that muscle.
Yeah. I am really excited for that stuff to come back a little more. And I feel like I've worked hard to maintain my friends so that those things will be there. I feel like I'm trying to get better at letting the hard things about life and the great things about life be both true at the same time.
Yeah.
Then I don't have to be so scared about the idea that I'm aging because like that's both the hard part of life and a good part of life.
Yeah. This episode is brought to you by Violet Archer and the Case of the Purple Martin, written by your very own Matt Naylor. He's going to read you a little passage from it.
All right, this is what starts the story. Whenever Baba and I are solving a mystery, or working a case, as we call it in the detective business, I always take a bunch of photos and write down a ton of notes. You never know what's going to turn out to be important, so I pay attention to everything, then sort out the good stuff later. A lot of detectives, once they close a case, they'll just pack up all those notes and photos and clues and put them in a box to gather dust, thinking the thing is finished. That's never made any sense to me and Baba, though. You know those connect the dots games they have on kids' menus at restaurants sometimes? The idea is, if you draw a line between all the dots going in the right order, it makes a picture that wasn't there before. To me, a box full of clues and photos and notes, that's just a bunch of dots with no picture. So when Baba and I solve a mystery, I go back and I open up that box. Then I use it to write the story of the case. I draw the lines. Because any halfway decent detective will tell you, the most important thing isn't figuring out what happened, it's figuring out why. Stories give us a why. We don't always get to choose the dots in life, but we do get to draw the lines.
Love it. Check the podcast description for a link to buy the book, or search Violet Archer on Amazon and buy it today.
Thanks. All right, man. I got a quote that you're probably going to think is super fucking weird,
Okay,
but I'm going to read it.
let's do it.
So this is this guy, Stephen Jenkinson. So Stephen Jenkinson is this like cowboy from Canada, basically, who you look at him, he's like a more like weathered Robert Duvall type
Okay.
character, but he's a great writer. And he talks a lot. He deals a lot in aging. He's older. And he also talks a lot about the relationship between what you expect your life to be and then what it is. Because I think that is something that hits when you're 40 too.
Mm-hmm.
You kept thinking you're going to be here, and then you're almost certainly not. Even if where you are is better, you're almost certainly not where you thought you were going to be.
Yeah.
And so he talks about kind of this process as wrestling with angels. I don't know, because he likes poetry.
Mm-hmm.
So he says, if you wrestle an angel, you will grow muscle. There's no doubt of that. You will also hurt in places that you didn't know you had. There's no doubt of that either. And you will lose by the normal calculus of trying to engineer the life that you're sure you deserve. It will not come out as you planned, wrestling angels. Your plans are usually the first casualty of the match. But here's the great secret of it. You will be able to boast of your defeat. You will be able to stand in the wreckage of what used to be your certainty, your creed, your way of doing life's business. And you can tell wild, true stories about how it all came to ruin. Whatever is left standing, and there's always something left standing when you wrestle angels, is the thing that was true about you and your life all along, as faithful a companion as the earth that will one day cradle you again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so nothing's going to work out. But then...
Nothing's going to work out how you thought it would.
But then, like, you'll be money.
Yeah, you'll wrestle the world to be the way you thought it would be, and it stubbornly won't be, and you'll lose, and you'll come out of it with a self that is more fully realized than the guy that went in, because you got your ass kicked a little.
And I think it's just, at what point do you realize that?
I think some people never realize that.
Yeah.
That's why I'm trying to, because I think that that's going to be hard for me to, I can read that, and I'm like, fuck, yeah. But like actually living that, I think it's going to take me a long time.
Yeah. There's an exercise that I heard from someone, I forget where, but basically, yeah, like write down all the things you want to be, do, and have, and then cross out the ones you're doing for other people.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like we do a lot of things because we should,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what society tells us or someone else tells us, or we think that our parents want us to do, or our neighbors are going to think. You got to know what you want.
Yeah, which is like strangely hard. It's hard to separate the things that you actually want from the things that you were taught that you ought to want, or the things that your parents expected or whatever.
Right. Like, for example, like when I went through this exercise at one point, you know, I used to do like stand-up comedy in college. Was I really doing that for myself? Or was I doing that because
Everyone always told you were funny.
and I was pretty good at it?
Uh-huh.
And that like outside validation felt good, as opposed to playing guitar by myself. If no one ever listened, I could play that by myself and sing in a
Yeah.
friggin' cave and be filled with joy.
Yeah, but it's hard to let go of the things that you thought you would be, or the things that people told you were good at, or even that you were good at but maybe didn't totally love. But I think it all keeps coming back to the same thing of, how do you have that positive association with aging? How can you look at 40 as like, no, I think this is good. No, you get to be yourself. You get to actually decide who yourself is and then try to be that person.
Yeah.
And it's not going to happen overnight. I'm still doing a lot of things. I got a lot of shoulds in there, and a lot of shoulds that I probably haven't even like separated from, you can't even tell, right? Like what is what
Right.
for a lot of your life. But I think that like I'm like going down that path.
Because so many things have just become our identity. Like, especially if you're good at something and everyone tells you you should do something,
Yeah.
then that's just like who you are. It's one of the things that you are.
Yeah.
That's why I like to sometimes fantasize about not doing something and just like, yeah, let's try that on for size with the old noggin.
Uh-huh.
Does that make me feel happy? If you feel like immediate elation,
Like dropping something.
yeah,
Yeah.
then it's like, ooh, that's something to listen to.
It's a pretty good indicator. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing about it that's felt great for me, and that actually that's like doing this podcast has helped with, is like, I don't think for most of my life I would have just gone on a thing that I knew people would listen to, including people I knew, and talk about stuff that's this personal and talk about like the way I think about dying and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I just would have felt like that guy, people are going to think I'm weird.
Yeah.
And increasingly I'm just like, yeah, maybe. So,
Yeah.
or I probably would have felt like, oh, that's not masculine or whatever. And it's like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I keep 2 kids alive and I cut all our firewood. I'm good.
But then also just like, who cares what they,
Who fucking cares? Yeah.
honestly, like if someone's going to be weird, they got their own shit. I feel bad for them.
Yeah.
To bring it back to death, because since you obviously are thinking about it a lot, that's really triggered something in you with the 40s. Like just one way
you
that I
think that, but this is me always.
Yeah.
This is just me getting to talk about what I like talking about.
Okay.
I've always, I've always tended to like just think about death. I don't know why, but it's always kind of in the mix.
Yeah.
If I have a couple of free minutes. But I feel like I prepare. I kind of, in some ways, I've been preparing for this moment my whole life, so it didn't freak me out that much. And then I really thought that like the biggest nudge toward thinking about my mortality in a different way came with having kids. So I felt like I already got that big push, and I didn't have it like again at 40.
I agree with what you're saying about like the kids really helped me a lot. I've been in like really bad turbulence a couple times, and like I sometimes will be like, I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
I weirdly have a feeling of calm that like I've kind of like done a lot by having this amazing family. Like I don't want to go, but like I'm so full. I'm just so lucky to even have this one moment with my kids that like just the sheer fact that we're here at all. First of all, just like that life even exists on planet Earth. And that the sperm that was half of you before it was a zygote, like that made it there, that you are whatever.
Gross.
You know what I mean? Like
Quit talking about my parents like that.
it's 1 in like 100 whatever billion trillion gazillion.
Yeah, what a gift.
And then just like 1 second with the kids, or just like imagine you were already gone.
Mm-hmm.
Would you trade everything for one more day?
Mm-hmm.
We get that one more day tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. And then it's like, that will wash over it. The fear is the fact that I'm just truly thankful that like I have the family that I have my health like at this exact moment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just so thankful for that it's like, you don't even have time for the rest of it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, you and I are pretty different in that way, I think. For me, the way that my kids, I don't know if I'd even say they helped me think about mortality because I don't feel comfortable with the idea of dying and leaving them. Not that that's not what I'm saying you feel either. It's more just like you moved out of the center of the universe. The thing that's most important to you is something that's younger than you. And then you're constantly watching them change dramatically because like every year they're so different than they were the year before.
Yeah.
And for me, I've just lost any perception, any sense that there is such a thing as stasis. Time is passing and you have this really clear marker that time is passing, just getting steadily taller in your house. And so you kind of can't dodge that like those years are passing for me too. I wonder how I'm changing. I'm not getting taller anymore, but my back hurts,
Yeah.
So I would just say that I can't avoid thinking about time passing. I mean, it was Stephen Colbert, he had like some really tragic happen in his family. Like he lost a couple of family members all at once in a car accident.
Yeah.
And he said this thing in an interview I heard. He said, I've never experienced a great moment without very soon after thinking about the fact that it's going to pass. I have a little bit of that.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to let those two things live alongside each other because it's true. What a gift to be here. And I feel that very intensely. Like I feel the joy of life.
Yeah.
In a super intense way. Also, like tied to that joy is like, yeah, and you get it for a little while.
Yeah, but do you have the ability to let the other thought be larger? And I let them coexist too. But like the first one about how thankful and excited I am is like it's just so much bigger. And it's like, I think about both too. But the other one never gets bigger unless I'm hungover or really stoned. And then it's like, I honestly feel like, and this could just be compartmentalization or my own coping mechanism, but I feel like when that's happening, I'm losing the mental battle.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, I think they're the same size all the time.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's all the two sides of everything. Like grief and love are just different points on a timeline. And I think that like I'm starting to not mind thinking about it that way as much.
Yeah.
I guess is what I'm saying, which is why I'm excited about being 40 and comfortable with my strangeness.
Yeah. I guess the question is like, does it ever overwhelm you or bum you out?
I do find existence to be both tremendously sad and tremendously miraculous and joyful.
Yeah.
And I think personally that if you really try to look life clear in the face, you can't not see both those things.
I go there, but when I go there, it's just like, for me, it just seems like a waste of time.
Interesting. Yeah.
So I like to do it like a touchstone because I like it because it reminds me of the importance of life. Like death gives life importance, but it's just a waste of time to spend any considerable time there. It's just like checking in to be like, okay, yeah, oh, I remember. And then better fucking get out there. Remember, it's like, okay, yeah, got it. Yeah. One chance, one ticket. Got it.
Yeah.
But then it's like back to making sure I crush it so that at the end, I don't have regrets.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I got shit to do.
Yeah. I wonder, you're talking about how you've always just gone real fast and tried to do a lot. I wonder if you're going to be able to slow down and keep those ideas at such an arm's length.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I'm talking about death, but I like for the first time in my life, and I don't mean this just turning 40, but in the last like couple of years, I don't think that's a bad thing in the way it has been for my whole life up until now. It still scares the shit out of me, but I feel like I'm heading in a direction,
Well, maybe you have a more healthy relationship with it than me because I maybe think that I'm dealing with it, but maybe I'm not. But like if I am like really hungover, I will start thinking like, oh, and I'll get like super sad where I really don't want to think about it because I'm like scared. So I have to like actually open my eyes or go on my phone.
Yeah.
Because I'm like losing the battle and I can start thinking about fun things, exciting things. I'll be like, okay. Yeah, I know I'm going to die. I fucking get it. I get it. Like, but I'm going to be talking about fun stuff in my brain.
Yeah.
I just think it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
To spend too much time there. Like, it's almost a form of like not being present. If you're thinking too much about death, are you really being present? You're thinking about the future.
Yeah, I think it can sneak up on that stuff. Yeah, I think that's right. I do think that like, because, you go through this time in your life where there's just kind of a lot going on. I'm just trying to get a little more comfortable with negative emotions and not feel like I have to like sprint the other direction or distract myself from them, I guess, constantly.
Yeah, that's wise.
What I've done often is like I've layered on top of, if I'm feeling something that's not great, I've layered on top of it like a stress that I'm feeling it or something. You're feeling that shit. You shouldn't be feeling that or whatever. But I know what you mean. I mean, you don't want to dwell in it and you really want to live in the present. Like probably everything, there's like a balance to it all. But I feel like I'm growing up.
Yeah.
And this is kind of what it looks like.
Yeah.
And I kind of don't mind. I'm ready to be an adult.
Hey, listen, to all the listeners out there, Matt just turned 40. He's obviously... He's got death on the brain.
I've gone through some things.
He's going through some stuff.
Brought to you by Violet Archer.